This video was brought to you by my own gaming channel, SideQuest. I've brought this up before in previous Stargate videos of mine, and I know it's a bit of a hot button issue, but the Ori storyline from seasons 9 and 10 of Stargate SG1 was one of my favourite eras of the show. The Goa'uld had really overstayed their welcome, and Season 7's The Lost City two-parter really should have been the series finale, and indeed the storylines from Seasons 9 and 10 were meant to be a new spin-off show. But either way, with new faces and a new storyline, Stargate SG1 felt fresh again in these two seasons. Mitchell and Vala were fresh new faces and enjoyable characters, and the Ori were an intimidating new threat. That being said, the final episode of Season 10, while being a solid bottle episode in and of itself, was a truly disappointing finale. So many plot threads and story arcs were left dangling, which is where Arc of Truth comes in. Not really sure why the showrunners decided to make this a DVD movie instead of a two-part finale, but either way we eventually got the payoff we were looking for. The plot of Arc of Truth is nothing special really, but it's a tried and true Stargate formula. Daniel Jackson and his team search for the Mythical Arc of Truth, which he believes will enable him to finally defeat the Ori once and for all. It's a repeat of a concept Stargate has done numerous times before, but it opens up the field for a nice mix of archaeological adventure and space opera action. Presentation-wise, Arc of Truth benefits from being a DVD movie as opposed to another episode in a long-running season, which could answer my previous questions about the overall production. With a larger budget to spread over less runtime, Arc of Truth is able to be a bit more epic than a typical SG1 adventure. It's nothing close to the lavish scale of the original Roland Emmerich movie, of course, but it allows the production team to be a bit more ambitious with its action set pieces. The VFX teams on the Stargate franchise have always delivered the goods, and with a larger budget, Arc of Truth allows them to deliver more terrific sequences. The less strained schedule also lets the overall direction feel more cinematic looking as well, and while the presentation has improved across the board, the element which has always been just as great is Joel Goldsmith's terrific music score. Now before we get into the nitty gritty of the character development and specific plot points, time for some shameless self-promotion. This video is brought to you by my new gaming channel SideQuest. It's a new channel, which means only a handful of videos have been released thus far, but the content is a healthy mix of video essays similar to what I do here, as well as myself and friends utterly failing at playing games properly. For the Trekkies of this channel, we have plans to do more videos on more Trek games, and for general gamers we have plenty more great videos in the works. Jump over there and subscribe to keep up to date with all the new uploads. Now that the shameless self-promotion is over, back to some Stargate goodness. What I've always especially liked about the Ori storyline is that it's less black and white than the Goa'uld conflict. The System Lords were pretty much irredeemable evildoers across the board, whereas the primary antagonists leading the Ori were kind of tragic figures, brainwashed and manipulated into their holy crusade. Tim Guiney is the ideal face for this sympathetic foe as returning character Tommen, now weary and battle-hardened from the war. It's his relationship with Vala which really provides the heart of the film, and Claudia Black plays the witty con artist and empathetic soldier really well. I guess my main gripe with the rest of the cast is that they don't really get as much to do. Well, they get plenty to do in the plot, with plenty of shootouts and MacGuffin hunts to keep them busy, but I wish they had a more personal stake in the story. That's something the Goa'uld conflict actually did do better, with Daniel's wife, O'Neill's friend Skara, Teal'c's liberation of his people, and even Carter's connection to the Replicators. Perhaps if the Ori story was its own spin-off, we could have had multiple seasons to establish similar personal stakes. But as they are, the cast lend the exposition-heavy dialogue enough personality and charm to keep things interesting. Not to mention Marina Baccarin stealing the show as space Antichrist Adria. I really hope she returns to the sci-fi genre one day because she's so at home in these kinds of shows. The last half of Arc of Truth is a terrific course in rising tension and set-piece action. The main team splitting off on their own plot threads leads to a relentless build-up of increasing stakes and desperation, which wouldn't be possible with a to-be-continued title card in the middle of it. Daniel, Vala, Tommen and Teal'c give us the standard laser gun fight through a Canadian forest, which Stargate fans are all too familiar with at this point, and Teal'c's riff on behind enemy lines as he treks across the wilderness was pretty badass. But my personal favourite action thread has to be Mitchell and Co going toe-to-toe with Replicators. Here the old enemy is back to basics, but with a new twist. It doesn't quite make logical sense for replicators to possess a human body like this, but damn is the visual worth it. It's a Terminator replicator, what's not to like? And the fight itself is well staged and choreographed. Just the physical state of Mitchell by the end of this movie as he's beaten to a bloody pulp is enough to keep viewers engaged. While the Stargate team have been in desperate situations like this before, the brutality and physical threat of their enemies has never been quite so impactful as it is here. The filmmakers knew they didn't have the money for a full-blown Star Wars space battle or anything so elaborate, so they just made sure to make the smaller scale action the best it could be, and I think they succeeded. By the time the Ori army is finally snapped out of its control, there's a real sense of widespread relief. We truly feel the scale of what the SG team was able to accomplish. So Arc of Truth, did it suck? No. While it doesn't reach the dizzying heights of the best of SG1 or Atlantis, it's a fitting end to Stargate SG1 and a conclusive finale to the Ori storyline. It's not the most moving piece of sci-fi, and its formulaic plot is quite technobabble heavy, but the Stargate team have done this enough times to still make it entertaining. The direction and presentation is nice, and the film is filled with enough fun action and cool visuals to keep viewers interested. I know there were plans to continue the adventures of the SG-1 with even more DVD movies, but ultimately, Arc of Truth is a fitting end to such a long-running era. Thomas Grossi asks, what are your thoughts on the MCU? I can't quite remember if I've answered this question before, but either way I'm not a huge fan of that franchise. It's certainly impressive what Kevin Feige and co have been able to build, but these days I'm pretty bored with all of it. One of the exciting things about a cinematic universe is supposed to be in seeing wildly different characters and genres cross over with each other, but all the Marvel movies feel pretty much the same now. They all have the same style of cinematography, they all have the same approach to humour, the same colour palettes, and in general the filmmaking isn't very special. Nothing in the MCU comes close to the heights of The Dark Knight, Richard Donner's Superman, or Sam Raimi's first two Spider-Man movies, at least in my opinion. They're nice time wasters and there's some fun moments, but I don't regard any of them as particularly great, and I've never really had the urge to go back and watch any of them again. James asks, would you rather not have had Season 5 of Babylon 5? No, not at all. I'm glad it exists. While the height of the show was certainly earlier, it's a real testament to the talents of JMS considering how much material he was able to come up with after all the major arcs had finished. It certainly feels like smaller fry after the epicness of the Shadow War and the liberation of Earth, but none of it is really bad. So no, I'm glad Season 5 exists and wouldn't want it gone. Thanks for watching. If you like what I do, perhaps like the video and subscribe for more. Or if you want to help me make even better videos, consider supporting the channel over on my Patreon page, where you can see videos like this before they go out on YouTube. Speaking of such, I'd like to quickly thank all of my patrons who are now appearing on screen. Have a good one, and as always, live long and prosper.